Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have 5:30. We'll start the meeting. Commissioner Patterson, would you lead us in invocation, please?
Everyone please stand. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we come tonight here to talk about something very important for Fannin County. And as we do so, the most important thing is to call upon you first. And that's what we're doing right now. We ask for your guidance, for your leadership, and help us as we discuss it, to discuss it in a proper manner that will be pleasing in your sight, to not be disrespectful, and not to have character association in any way, but to have a good debate. There's nothing wrong with it. But Lord, help us to be in your will from the beginning to the end. And give us your wisdom, Lord, because we know your wisdom is perfect, and we want to always be in your will. So go with us tonight as we go through this meeting, Lord, and help it to be all in your honor and glory. We ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Mr. Cole, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Thank you. You may be seated. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll call the public hearing. We'll call our meeting to order for the Fannin County Board of Commissioners.
For the purpose of public hearing on House Bill 581, I call the Fannin County Board of Education to order.
Thank you. With that, we'll ask Ms. Cochran, if she would. She's our Chief Appraiser here in Fannin County, to make the presentation, and then we'll open it up to public commentary.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Dawn Cochran. I'm the Chief Appraiser here at Fannin County. We're here tonight to discuss House Bill 581. And before I get started with my presentation, I just wanted to let you know that I pulled a few PowerPoints from a adjoining commissioner, Mr. Blake Ellsbury. He had some good PowerPoints put together in regards to the law itself of House Bill 581. So some of my presentation has his work in it, so I wanted to give him credit there. As we've been discussing House Bill 581, some of the questions that keep coming up over and over is, you know, I didn't know that about Fannin County, or, you know, maybe I didn't know that, or maybe you don't know that. And so I kind of wanted to start my presentation local. And so I've titled it, What Many May Not Know About Fannin County. And the first thing that we're going to look at here is Fannin County currently has 8 different levels of just our local freeze. These exemptions date all the way back to 1999, and they are in addition to our state exemptions. So an example of, just a simple example of how they work, is if your property value is at $100,000, and then with market increases and values changing, we raised your value to $110,000 for the next year. If you have a local floating homestead in Fannin County, it will actually absorb that $10,000 market increase, and you're still going to pay on $100,000. Now, it gets a little more complicated than just that, because our cities have no exemptions. That's a floating exemption right now. The county does, and these floating exemptions applies to all ages and there's no income limits. But our school portion of our local exemption only currently applies to our 70 plus in the age gap, and the income itself has income limits. Our local exemption have no rate of inflation, so that 100,000 that you lock in for your house and up to 10 acres is gonna stay the same. It's not gonna go up in a CPI, it's not gonna go up in a 2, 3, 5% increase, okay? Right here is Fannin County's mill rates. And something that people are kind of talking about right now is one of the reasons House Bill 581 was actually put into effect is that the state representatives from the Capitol are getting tired of people taking what they're calling a backdoor tax, and they're not rolling back their millage rates as the values are going up. And so you can see, we'll start at 2014. You can see that the mill rate for the total between the school and the county and the state at that point was 17.794. And as values have increased, we've been able to drop the school and the counties. The state phased theirs out in 2015 was the last year they got any of it. And so our county currently was sitting in 2024 at a 9.165 millage rate, counting the school and the county. We've been told that's the second or third lowest mill rate in the state of Georgia. So I kind of pulled a little table together for you guys. This was from 2023, and it shows you Fannin County's county portion is a 2.757. It shows you that the school portion was a 7.439. And if you go down that table, you're gonna see Gilmer, they're higher. You're gonna see Union, they're higher. You're gonna see Pickens, even more higher, and Towns. So 2024, we were sitting at a rollback of 2.465 on the county's portion, and we were looking at a rollback for the school at 6.7. A few other factors that we have to consider when we're talking about House Bill 581 is how much commercial do we have? How much industrial do we have? How many, what is your ratio of residential parcels? And in Fannin County, if you look at the chart right in the center, under residential that's in blue, 82% of our digest comes from residential properties. So as you guys know, locally, we don't have a whole lot of commercial and we don't have a whole lot of industrial to help us in our budget. And then another thing that we considered, and I've talked to both the school and the counties, is the fact that they passed a House Bill 808 this year, and it was on the ballot along with 581. And what it said was, just off the top of my head, do you want the personal property tax to be taken from $7,500 to $20,000? We'll give, you'll start being taxed at $20,000 instead of $7,500. Well, for some of you that don't know, personal property tax is for your boats, your businesses, your airplanes, things of that matter. Well, some of the taxpayers in the state of Georgia thought that meant off of your house. And they was like, yeah, an exemption, I'll take it. So just that 808 actually took $12 million off of our digest. So, and that's just from $7,500 to $20,000, not talking about what it was already exempting off before. So for the school, that looks like $82,000 of revenue. And for the county, it looks like $30,000 of revenue. So we had to consider that before we ever even looked at House Bill 581. Now I'm going to discuss a little bit about 581 and explain what it actually is and how it works and my understanding of it. So it was set up to be a statewide floating homestead exemption. The bill took effect January the 1st, 2025. The way it come across is that every county in the state of Georgia is in it unless they opt out, including the school, the county, and the cities. So now, right now, as it stands, we all have a local exemption. House Bill 581 is a floating exemption for local governments. A floating homestead is a type of exemption that's designated to offset inflationary increases in value. So go back to that sample I gave you of the 100,000 going up to 110. That's what they're talking about right there. But House Bill 581 actually has a additional sales tax that they're offering along with it. So instead of just getting a cap on your values, they're saying, let's offset that cap of values and the loss of revenue there and vote in a 1% floating local option sales tax, and they're gonna call it the FLOST. If the FLOST passes, that additional revenue can be used for property tax relief. And what it'll do is dollar for dollar, it'll roll back the millage rate if it passes. One of our concerns is that Fannin County citizens may have not read that voting yes meant that they were gonna have to host an election and that they were gonna have to vote in an additional sales tax. The earliest an election can be held right now is likely gonna be November of 2025. This election, if we end up having a private election, will end up costing the taxpayers $38,000 to $40,000. The soonest that any of the counties will be able to receive a return on this sales tax is going to be 26 and more likely 27 now that we're hearing more about it. This would require to be voted on in each county every 5 years. For the homes first receiving this exemption in the tax year of 2025, they're going to set your base rate as the value that you had for 2024. The value can be reset if you sell your home or if you add things to it, remodel, build a garage, this property changes in the form of real growth. The floating homestead exemption in House Bill 581 is in addition to and not in place of our existing homestead exemptions. For communities with existing local floating homesteads or freezes, which we do have, the taxpayer will receive whichever of the two exemption is more beneficial to the taxpayer. This includes any local floating homestead exemptions that we may add in the future. Here is a sample exemption of if House Bill 581 was put into place in Fannin County and you was pulled through the wind gap system as saying, okay, 581 is more suitable for this parcel. You'll take that same $100,000 value. Let's say that I went up to the 110,000, but they had a 2% cap. So you would be taxed on 102,000 with an exemption of 8,000. Then the next year, they may bring that cap up to 6%, and you would go up 6% and no more. This CPI is considered a consumer price index, and it comes from the State Revenue Commissioner annually. Tax burdens don't disappear, they shift. In Fannin County, we do not have many commercial and industrial properties, as I had said earlier, to shift this burden to. We have majority of residential properties, so if we cap values or increase exemptions, one of three things will have to take place. Number one, a budget cut for the cities, counties, and schools. Millage rate increases from the school, county, and city, or a combination of the two. Cut the budget some, roll back, or increase the millage rate some. So many unknowns is what's really got us, questioning this House bill of whether or not it's what's best for Fannin County. Some of those being, how much will the homestead exemption take off the digest? We're not really concerned about 25 and 26. We're really concerned about taxpayers in Fannin County in 5 to 10 to 20 years. How much will the FLOST extra sales tax actually bring into Fannin County? Will the FLOST even pass in Fannin County? How much will we have to increase our millage rates to offset the difference with these caps and all these changes? Did the voters fully understand what they were voting on? Do the voters know what Fannin County currently has to offer? What will the cost increase be to goods and services, and the budget keep increasing and increasing when you're limited and capped on the value of the property increasing? And I want to make something clear here. At no time have I ever said that there's not going to be additional money, because if Robert builds a house, we're going to add that to the digest, and that's real growth, okay? Commercial coming in, that's real growth. We will see growth, but we will face a cap that is unknown, that can't be determined, and we will face the fact that in 5 years, we don't know if the sales tax are going to bring in what they've been bringing in. We don't know what's going to happen to our economy. We don't know what's going to happen to our market. So what concerns us as a whole with all these elected officials is if we opt into this and the market plummets, so values go down, and we lose revenue coming in from sales tax because people stop coming in and visiting and spending their time with us and their money with us. And then, you know, those are out of our control, and no one can determine what happens there. So if you have plummets in the negatives in all these different areas, then we know the only way to still manage at the year before's income not going up is significant mill rate increases. And Fannin County has worked so hard at keeping our mill rates down. This is an example that I added for this hearing. I wanted everybody to take a look at this. At the top of it, it says an example of an 8-year taxation in Fannin County with having state and local exemptions for Fannin County, and with value increases and mill rate rollbacks. So we were challenged and said, hey, go pull 7 to 10 years of your taxes and let's see what happens. This is why we're implementing this. So I did. I pulled a random individual's tax bill, and in 2017, his value was $234,000. You gotta take that by 40% to get the assessed value. That comes down to $93,870. The mill rate back then was 15.406. He had a exemption amount of $48,710. So if he had not had any exemption, his tax bill would have been $1,400. But with an L4, which means that this individual was 65, his tax bill was $1,031. If you go over to the FMV column, that's fair market value, and as you go down that column, you'll see that I went up on that value. It went up $232,000, it went up to $433,000, and it went all the way up to $460,000. This man made no changes on his house. The mill rate went from 15 down to 9. His tax bill went from $1,031 down to $523. Fannin County is not one of the counties that have taken advantage of our taxpayers. As values increase, the elected officials roll back the mill rates. With value caps and potential mill rate increases, over time, this chart will look much different. With one of the lowest millage rates in the state of Georgia, Fannin County shows that our taxation system's working. I contribute that to property being assessed at market value, efficient tax collection, elected officials rolling back mill rates when they can, and a complicated balance of property tax coming in and our multiple local option sales tax that we have currently. Fannin County has been blessed with a history of men and women making decisions that are in the best interest of the county, whether it be short or long term, and that's why we are here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate that presentation, and with that, if everybody's in agreement, we'll open up to public commentary. So if you would, please come up, tell your name, and tell us what's on your mind. We'd love to hear it.
Mr. King's working on it. Give us just a minute, sir.
Hello, my name's Bill Decker. I just had a couple questions on how the tax currently works. On the current eligibility for homeowners, how is that actually, is it eligible for all homeowners that have homestead?
So yes, we have a S1 code, and it doesn't matter your age and your exemption. If you locked your house in 2000, one house and 10 acres is going to be exempt on the county portion, no matter what your age is, okay? There's no income requirements, and you don't have to file again. One time's all you have to file. Now, we do homestead audits, and sometimes we may send you a letter, say, hey, are you still there? What's going on if we have suspicion. Then if you're 62, 65, and 70, you come back in and you bring proof of income, and we can try to get you qualified, and it is based on income and age at 62, 65, and 70. That 70-year-old exemption is when it takes it off of the county and the school. And if you look right here, this will help you see what I'm talking about. This guy's right here. Let me jump over to it. If you look at the one that went from an L4, right there in the middle of the screen, you see that L4, he went from 65 to 70. So you see his exemption jumped up to $220,000 because he started receiving that freeze from the time he locked it in off the school also.
When you said that he has to qualify for income, do you not, if you earn over a certain amount, then you don't qualify?
Yes.
And what is that?
I don't have that amount right here with me. Janine, tell me.
$96,432.
That's my homestead girl.
As far as this goes, in terms of counter to the new proposal, is effectively it freezes all people with a homestead exemption, and there's no age restrictions or income restrictions on it. Is that?
There is no age and there is no income.
However, anybody who is up here where it's a second home, investment property, or any of those, is their tax rates just continue to move, right?
Yes.
What is the percentage today that is second home and investment properties versus homestead?
I'll have to get that for you. I'll have to run a report and get that, but if you come to my office, I can get that for you. I know that I just had an open records request the other day, and we have 6,500 parcels with homestead on them. And out of, let me look at this real quick, I'll tell you how many total parcels we have. Around 16,000 residential, close. Out of the 16,000, 6,500 are claiming a exemption of some sort.
So effectively, 10,000 are, today, roughly speaking, 10,000 properties are ineligible for any relief.
Yeah, they either don't live here and can claim it full-time, or they haven't applied. That would be the case there. Lynn says that's 40% with those estimate numbers.
40% have homestead. Do you know what the tax base is of the 40%? Versus, I mean, in terms of the total revenue generated from real estate taxes, the 40% that has homestead versus the ones that don't?
I don't have that information.
Is that, I mean, I think in terms of what the exposure is, it's really to the ones who have a homestead, right, that are there. The ones who don't, they're gonna continue to pay regardless of what happens to, right?
Well, I'm not sure where you're going with this, but if you're asking this, if we end up rolling millage rate up because of value caps, okay, it's gonna affect everyone, not just homestead. It's gonna be commercial, industrial, homesteaded, and non-homesteaded. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, it would affect everyone, right?
It will, if we end up rolling mill rates up. The House Bill 581 only has the interest of homesteaded parcels.
So so what you're saying is that if you have to increase the millage rate, it increases for everyone, not
Every
the ones-
single
not
one
the
of
ones
us.
who are exempt.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, that was what I wanted to know.
Yes, and if you want real numbers,
Sure.
just come to the tax assessor's office, I'll get them for you.
Appreciate the information.
You're welcome.
Someone else? Someone else?
I guess I'm working. I'm not used to using the microphone. My name's Barry Ross. First thing I'd like to commend the commissioners. I think they do a fantastic job with our tax digest. I'm completely satisfied with the job that they do with the taxpayers' money as far as splosh. It's a wise spending that I see. There's probably a reason that a lot of people voted for HB 581. And like she said earlier, most people thought they was going to get some tax relief. I think most people want tax relief. It's a problem. It's not a problem for the commissioners, I don't think. It's probably a problem for the school board, because that's what I hear the most complaints about is what they're paying the school board. Now, I have to be careful what I say right here. The last time I went to a school board meeting, and I go to all kinds of meetings. Last time I went over there, they said, if you don't like it, you can move. I don't want to move. My folks have been here for 200 years. If there's a problem and people want to see the light at the end of the tunnel, that's why they vote for something like this. At the end of the day, I'd rather know more about what's going on and understand why. Don showed a chart up there where a man had, his tax bill went from what, $1,000 down to $500 something? I think I'm missing out on a lot of deductions. I think a lot of people are. Educate people so that they can understand what they're missing out on. If somebody's got $1 million house and they're only paying $500, I noticed that. The only thing I noticed in my tax bill and all the people that I talk to is they get, you go back 7 years on mine and you see mine going up and up and up and up. There's got to be something wrong. That's a problem. That's a problem. Now, at the end of the day, everybody's going to get their money. Used to, they call it a backdoor increase, where they mashed the button and taxes went up. Fortunately, we've had rollbacks in the millage rate, which is the right thing to do. So that's probably behind what got this HB 581 done. At the end of the day, though, City of Blue Ridge, the other cities, but Kaysville, Morganton, they're going to get their money. If they have to raise the millage rate, they're going to get it. School board's going to get their money at the end of the day. I started out with a whole list of things that I would like to ask, but I'm not going to. Because at the end of the day, I'd rather know if the school board or the cities or the commissioners, I'd rather them do it than be forced in something that we don't know. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. I like parts of the new 581. I do. But I don't know what that's going to be like. I know what we've got now compared to what we may have. And that's it.
Anyone else?
Hey, I'm Ginger Rogers, and I was going to ask Dawn something. The slide that Mr. Ross was speaking about where somebody's taxes went from 1,000 to 500. Is that just county taxes, or was that county and school?
Both.
It was both.
Both. That's both.
But that's just with a standard exemption.
No, that's a L4 and a L7. So,
Okay, so that's age and income
yeah,
qualified,
he was
correct?
65 for the first 4 years, and then he turned 70 in
So-
2021.
In that same scenario, if somebody was not eligible for the age and income, but they still were eligible for homestead exemption, would their property taxes have gone down or gone up?
It would have gone down with mill rate rollbacks.
And what's the standard deduction for just a standard school exemption?
30,000 if you're in that age age
If you're
bracket.
not age or income restricted, if you don't have those qualifications, just say somebody that's 50 and still working. but they have a homestead.
So
What
they
is
would be in
their-
the S1 category at that point. And the way it's calculated, Ginger, is whatever value they locked in at. So if you locked in at 200,000 and we went up to 350, there's gonna be a portion of it that comes from the state, which would be $2,000. And then the rest would come from the local freeze of where that absorption took place from the increase.
And that's
So there's
county
not
and
like a
school?
set dollar.
For county and school?
It's county, the school, you only get it if you're 70 on the school tax.
So a 50-year-old that's still working, what's their school exemption?
That's what I'm telling you, it depends on their
2,000.
value. The state part is gonna be 2,000.
2,000.
4,000 if they are 65 or 62. But there's not a set dollar amount. It's about that float of when they lock their value in versus what their value is right now.
Okay. And thank you, by the way, for sending me.
You're welcome.
the-
You helped me out by requesting that.
Yeah, I thought so. And I believe you told me at the other meeting that all said, as far as all tax parcels, we have just under 30,000
Yes.
tax parcels,
Yes.
correct? And that would include boats, mobile homes?
No, that's real parcels.
Okay, so
I
that
can
would
actually
include
tell-
vacant land and land with homes, correct?
I can tell you right here, if you look at the very top, you've got 29,000 real property, 6,440 personal property.
Okay.
And then out of that, you've got about 1,400 exempt.
Okay, and then, so out of the 29,000 tax parcels, only 6,500 of those are eligible, have homestead exemptions.
Currently, in 2024, we're claiming homesteads.
So that's about a quarter of the
Yes,
tax parcels
yes.
are even eligible for this at all.
Well, it's not that they're not eligible. There's a lot of people that don't claim an exemption even though they could.
Really?
Yes.
Because they have homes somewhere else that might be more beneficial with homestead?
Well, they could have exemption somewhere else. They could not lay down a residence as their exemption.
Okay,
But there's a lot of people that don't claim exemption.
okay,
Number one, they don't want to give your income. See, it's income based, so they may not even do that. Now, they may claim an S1, which
Okay.
they wouldn't have to provide
Right.
anything like that.
yeah, because that's not
Right.
income required. Okay, so about a quarter of the tax parcels in the county would be eligible for any sort of cap. So that would mean the other 3/4, you could still go up or down, correct? Without a cap.
That changes every year, as like right now, we're taking a bunch of exemptions in, and those numbers was from 2024. So with the current numbers right now, the ones that House Bill 581 could help would be 6,500, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. And that's just current, of course,
That's just-
nobody knows what will
right,
happen
right.
in the future. And so I was wanting to ask a couple of questions, if I could, to, I don't know if the finance person for the school board is here, or,
Yes, she is.
okay, okay. So, do you know that, I mean, can you give us some sort of idea that, say, in the past 20 years, is your school enrollment trending up or down as far as enrollment?
I can answer an enrollment question.
Okay,
For the past 5 years, we have a slight decrease, but that's just the last 5 years. I'm sorry.
I just looked at that data for the last 5 years. I cannot give you trend data for the last 20 years off the top of my head, but we are at a very slight decrease.
okay. Well, the data that I was able to get, and I don't know if it's accurate, it's from the Carl Vinson Institute. And it says that since 1994 through 2003, our school enrollment in the county is down 6.1%. Does that sound reasonable, or?
I can't verify that without it being in front of me, but if
Right.
that is from Carl Vincent,
Okay.
then your data is probably correct. But the last 5 years, yes, there's a slight decrease.
And then in Union and Gilmer counties, it's showing that respectively, they're up 192 and 169% for the same time period. Do you, and just not trying to be, you know, but school taxes are a big portion of our taxes. And just wondering, do you have an idea of like your cost per student? Or is that something you guys track in any way?
We do track and have to report a cost per student. Susan, unlike Ms. Dawn, if you can contact the board office, I can give you an exact number.
Okay.
But I will tell you that it's over 95% of our budget that goes towards personnel.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of our increases over the year is not per pupil cost that's itemized that way, but it's per pupil cost when you divide it out for personnel cost.
And
If that makes any
95%
sense.
goes towards personnel, which would go directly towards students and how they're learning, correct?
Yes,
But
ma'am.
that-
We
the-
are blessed in our county with eSPOS. The voters have been very good to get that. So
And that can't go towards paying
no,
the staff.
that is, the law does not allow that. But what it does allow us to do is to use our SPOSSable dollars to maintain operations, which frees up our
Frees
tax-based
up your
revenues
tax money.
that we can invest in people, which is the most, the right thing to invest in.
Right. And this is probably not something that the current board members can answer, because I don't think they were present at the time, but this is just a question. I don't mean any offense or anything by it, but it's just, there's been quite a bit of property purchased by the school board in the last few years, and I think just right here around the high school, about 230 acres for the new sports complex, which will be awesome, by the way, at roughly $14 million. And just out of curiosity, the fair market value on the tax base on the 14 million is $3.3 million. So I guess if it's legal to answer this kind of question, it might be protected information, but when the school board makes big land purchases like that, do they get appraisals?
Ms. Doss can actually help me to answer that question, because it is a little different when a public entity has sales. I don't want to misspeak, Ms.
Oh,
Ginger.
I understand.
Yeah.
It's just a question.
Yes.
Okay, thank
The
you.
short answer is yes. I mean, it may be a formal appraisal. We've had that over the year. There's been situations where the property was immediately adjacent to a facility, and they negotiated a price because there was a need to have that property. I remember the day they got the contract on this property, but I don't remember.
Which
I know-
one?
I'm sorry, the one you were talking about, the nearly.
Well, I mean, that was two different purchases. I think the 66-acre tract was purchased for $4 million. And then the remaining, I think it was 160 acres, was purchased for $10 million.
And I know that the 160 was a negotiation that started under Sandra Messier's administration, went through Mark Henson's administration, and finally was resolved during the Watney administration.
Yeah,
And
I
it
think
believed,
it was
it was
2021.
purchased, I'm sorry, Ms. Ginger, I believe it was, the purchase was finalized, I believe, in 2021 and 2022, if
2021,
I'm not
according to the tax
mistaken.
records.
Yes, ma'am, and we were fortunate enough to be able to use SPOSS funds for that.
Right.
And the blessing is, it was a wonderful opportunity to be able to have the land around this facility, because when you're working for a school system, unfortunately, on one side, you just can't plan for next year.
Right.
But fortunately, on one side, you're not getting to just plan for 1 year. We're actually, you have to plan 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And by, good fortune in being able to get that property, it has opened up the possibilities for our students in the future that is going to be phenomenal.
And who at your office did you say I could contact for?
If you'll
Just you?
You can contact
Okay.
me, and then I will get different directors to do different things, and that way I can get you to the right person for the right information. And then when you said it was protected information, the only thing that's protected information in the school system is what falls under FERPA, any personal identifiable information about people, but we have open records for finances or anything that you may
So
need.
appraisals would be available?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? Okay, if nothing further, we'll close public commentary. What I'd like to do is I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this evening. This is exactly what we're trying to do. This is we've said in the last 2 meetings, is to try to make the best decision moving forward, not for tomorrow, not for 6 months down the road, but 5 and 10, 20 years down the road. Our goal as commissioners, and I'll speak for us, if I may, is we always want to try to leave it better than we found it. And I think that is the goal of every elected official, at least in Fannin County that I'm aware of, is to try to leave it better than we found it. And I feel that we work hard to benefit the people of Fannin County. I'm only going to speak for myself, but I think a lot of these folks sitting up here are like-minded. We don't have an agenda. I don't have an agenda. It's not about me, it's about you. And we're trying to make the best decision for Fannin County moving forward. And even though you get accused of this and accused of that, if you ever need anything, we're here for you. I think most of you have called me. I look around and I can see most of you has called my office one time or another, and I couldn't find the answer. Ms. Rogers, if we'd find it for you, you would be. So understand that what we're trying to do is not going against anybody's will or anything like that. We're just trying to make the best decision moving forward for Fannin County. And if what we have to offer is better than what's being proposed, why would we not do that? That's kind of what I have to say. I'll open it up to the school board and the municipalities if they'd like to say anything before we close. So, gentlemen, ma'am.
I'd just like to say that I appreciate all the community support that we get from Fannin County, and it's just not monetary. People give their time, they give relationships, and we can't forget that as we move forward.
My apologies. C. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Oh, I didn't have a question.
Gotcha. Well, that's why I said C. That's what I was taught in school. Now, C. I see you. Morgan, you got anything? Blue Ridge? Okay.
Nobody else, just us?
All right. Well, that being said, for Fannin County, and as well, please don't leave hastily. For Fannin County, we will call this meeting to a close. School board.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I got a motion and a second, all in favor. We are adjourned.
Senior Blue Ridge meeting is adjourned.
Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? Also need to make any
Second the motion.
For clarification, can you read the resolution that you were asking for a first and a second motion on?
Yes. Resolution by the City of McKaysville Mayor and Council to opt out of the homestead exemption pursuant of OCGA Section 48-5-44.2. Whereas Georgia Code OCGA Section 48-5-44.2, effective January the 1st, 2025, creates a statewide homestead exemption from ad valorem taxes levied by, for, or on behalf of the state of any county, consolidated government, municipality, or local school district in this state, and whereas more specifically, OCGA Section 48-5-44.2, I authorizes the governing authority of any section, consolidated government, municipality, or school district to opt out of the homestead exemption otherwise granted with respect to such political subdivision through certain procedures and the adoption of a resolution by March the 1st, 2025. And whereas the City of McKaysville desires to opt out of the homestead exemption otherwise granted, and whereas the City of McKaysville has complied with the required procedures pursuant to OCGA Section 48-5-44.2, Section I, including but not limited to holding at least 3 public hearings on the intent to opt out and placing the required advertisement in a newspaper of general circulation and on its website as required. Whereas it is advantageous to the welfare of the residents of the City of McKaysville, Georgia, that the City of McKaysville opt out of the homestead exemption otherwise granted. Now therefore be it resolved that the governing authority of the City of McKaysville hereby opts out of the homestead exemption otherwise granted by OCGA Section 48-5-44-2. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall become effective upon its approval by the governing authority of the City of McKaysville. Be it further resolved that the City of McKaysville City Clerk is hereby directed to provide a certified copy of this resolution to the Georgia Secretary of State no later than March the 1st, 2025.
I need a motion to adopt this resolution.
Motion.
A second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. I need a motion to close this meeting.
So moved.
Second. Second. All in favor?
You want to announce your meeting for Monday?
The Board of Education will host a 4th public hearing February the 10th at 6 o'clock at the Staff Development Center.
All right, thanks once again for coming out this evening. This adjourns this meeting. Everybody be safe going home, and we appreciate y'all. Thank you.